It's fine. It's hot in here. It's what it is. Hey, talk to Miss Cantor.
It's cold out there.
Talk to Miss Cantor. All right. Anyway, guys, this is Mike. He was here in Delphi, and alumni, and talk to you to give you your undivided attention. And on it. Yeah, if you have any questions after we're done.
So, bear with me because I've told my story many times today and everything, but, so yeah, it's right, back in 1988, I came here at age 14. I'm probably one of the oldest of them. Maybe someday I'll be a record or something. But anyhow, I'm gonna talk a little bit about real quick what led up to that. Childhood briefly, chaos, addiction, alcohol, fighting, you name it. It's normal. And so my mom gets away from this guy. We end up going through 3, 4, 5 different public housing places, moving around a little bit and everything. And also at the time too, key thing to remember, maybe like folks don't know is when I was about 12 or 13, that's when the crack cocaine epidemic. It just blew through my neighborhood like a tornado. It's just like I've seen people dropping weight, walking and carrying TVs down the street, getting rid of the cars. Like it was just sad. We had hospital sheets on his bed and all this stuff. But so it was a very difficult time and everything. But eventually, I went down that wrong path, because my mom was distracted by, some new boyfriend or something like that. And so I was happy. I'm like, I can go out there, checking on me and stuff like that. But that lack of structure, led me down the road I didn't want to go down. And so doing drugs and alcohol and everything, eventually I was arrested. We'll go into that because it was just a person that did that. And yeah. And so I was in one rehab in my life, and that was up in Erie, Pennsylvania. And then from there, I went to George Jr., if any of you guys know that. That's just, And then they found a Delphi, and they said, there's this drug and alcohol program down there. And okay. So it was a 6 to 9 month program. I ended up staying 11 months. So that should give you an idea of how nice I was while I was there. But there was so much that this place has taught me. And while you're here, you don't think about these things. But it's like, start learning all the stuff lately, little things, like ironing clothes, like cleaning, like whatever. It's like basic life skills, basic things we do. So life skills and everything. So when I get out of this place, I get home and I go back to the same environment that I came from. Bad idea, obviously. And it's like eventually I ended up, working small jobs here and there and everything. I want to keep working small jobs. Do I want to create a And so I decided to go to school, and I got my bachelor's and everything. So what I want to say though is like it was just me and my mother. My father lived like at the time 3 blocks up the street, had nothing to do with me, never talked to me. And like I said, no brothers or sisters. And so about halfway through getting my bachelor's, my mom gets diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And her biggest concern was she wanted me to finish school. And I kept telling her, I says, they'll understand and you can make things happen, make things work. We need to get to some better doctors and all that stuff. And so at first it was like, when I went in, I'm thinking, I was so afraid I was going to fail. I'm like, I just want to make it through this. Am I going to make it through? Coming down like to 3rd, 4th year, I'm like, is my mom going to live to see me graduate? That's how bad I got. And so when I graduated, the cool thing about it was they were able to overnight my degree, you know, and she was able to open it up on the couch and stuff, and she felt real good about that. And so for the next year, instead of, you know, going into the workforce and everything, I took care of her till she died, you know, by myself, pretty much. And it was difficult. And I describe it as, you know, you look at somebody that you really care about or you really love, and it's like, see them become a shadow of their former self. There were times where I sat there and I felt like I was staring death in the eyes. And I was probably, in reality. But, and that was thunder. So she passes away after about a year, and I'm thinking, okay, now what am I gonna do? I don't have any money. I got like $270 or something. How am I gonna live and all this stuff? And I put this in a story because it's important, because this could have changed the whole outcome of my entire life. Oh, you sure? It could have changed my entire life, by the way. And one of the things was my mother had all these pain medications and fentanyl patches and benzos and all that stuff and everything. And so I talked to my uncle and I tell him, and he was like, hold on to that stuff, don't get rid of it. He's like, I'll find someone to unload that for you. And he's like, you made lots of money. We're talking like, he was saying like $35,000 or something. And so I was like, okay, you know, I was desperate and needed money. They're in there. And not even a week later, I think it was about a week, I see on TV, I mean, this was during where they had this pill epidemic, you know, led into the heroin, led into the fentanyl, all that. But I see this on TV where this kid, this young man, he was 19 years old, and he went to go buy Oxycontin in Newcastle. And when he went to the door, when he went to the porch, he just never left the porch, he was killed. And when I saw that and I heard that, I was like, something just like went off inside of me. I was like, I can't have somebody else's blood. It's not good for me. And so I went in and I scooped all that stuff into a trash bag, took it out, threw it in a dumpster. A lot of people asked me if I went back out and got it. No, I didn't. But I got rid of it. And that was a key, important decision, because if I would have got into that, like, they got two that I didn't do. You know what I'm saying? Because like with all that there, that would probably kill me or something. A short period of time. But so by not doing that, I was thinking, okay, so which direction do I want to go here? Because it really didn't matter, because think about it. No father, no mother, no brothers, no sisters. It's just me. So what difference does it make? You know, I can go this way or that way. So I thought about that everything, and I said, okay, I'm going to try global radio. And so I went out to the workforce and everything. First job, $7.50 an hour. Obviously, it's a long time ago. The wages still price $7.50 an hour. But it was so bad that, like, after I got paid and everything, I had help from, like, you know, some services, you know, help pay the rent, this and that. And everything. After everything, out of my pay, I was left with $76. And $76 I take care of gas, hygiene stuff, and food stuff. So I basically survived on all these hot dogs and ramen noodles. I went from 157 to 125. And a relative looked at me one time and he was like, Mike, right? You know, he thought I was doing something, you know, just because of starving, you know, basically. And but that was rough, and it's like, and I remember telling myself, you know, this is what it's gonna be like. I don't know if I'm gonna stick around for this, you know. And so, but what I found out was, as I continued to press forward and press on, one opportunity led to another opportunity. And so I started noticing the pay was starting to go up, you know. Okay, you know, and so then I went to funny side after working these places, you know, to get a master's degree. And like, I hate saying this because I felt really bad about it, but I bombed out of it. And like I said, in the last class, you know, I could sit here and make excuses and say it was a wrong program and all that. Maybe I just wasn't ready. I just didn't take it serious, you know, who knows? But one of the things I want to say on that is that this place, it was unbelievable. The contact this place, just let them know what I was doing and everything. And all of a sudden, like I had like a $1,000 scholarship, $400 worth of gas cards, and everything. And I'm like, I was like 30 years old. I'm like, wow, like talk about continued care. Continued care is like, I always tell people aftercare, continued care means you care about what happens to you. Say, and for them to do that, it's just like, especially back then, not, even though it was too long ago, it's like, there wasn't a whole lot of that. So a lot of it was, if somebody goes somewhere, it's like, okay, you completely finished, go to your counseling sessions, whatever, and that's it. But these people actually like care, that just kind of blew me away. So I was able, I've been down here a few times, a couple of times, it's my third time. Once was for a promotional thing, once speak, and then I guess I'm coming back Friday, I think, for graduation or something. Talking about that, but so then what happened was, so after that and everything, the good thing that came out of that is when you go to get that degree, you got to do something what's called a practicum, a field placement, where you go and they kind of like shadow you, kind of teach you how to do stuff and everything. And one of the good things came out of that was the place they put me in was affiliated with this huge, huge rehab. And so I said to myself, I said, I'm going to call them. So I called and I asked about, what positions you have. And the stuff they said, I was just like, okay, I'm going to call you back in a year with more experience and go from there. Call back in a year. And they were like, there's a family therapist position, there's an inpatient position, and there's a halfway house position. So which one do you want to apply for? And I said, all of them. And so I ended up, two of them, I got to pick from. I picked inpatient, which is, for some people, it's pretty stressful. It's a little wild sometimes, you want to predict and all that. But coming from a family where it's wild and unpredictable, it's like, none of that bothered me. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, one class, somebody in the group might be like, F you or something, and I'd be like, all right, next. I just didn't care. That's kind of, life was too short to work. And a lot of times too, in those situations, somebody would come back an hour later and say, wait, I'm sorry, I just got this news from home, I didn't mean that, things like that. Sir, do you have something?
Do you still do those things now?
No.
Okay, what do you do now?
What I do now is, as far as employment is concerned, so getting up to that, so I got into the inpatient thing. I worked in inpatient for 10 years, which is when I started, I said I was going to do 2 years, move on, but I ended up doing 10 years. And then from there, I went into withdrawal management detox, worked there for a couple of years. Then the company was changing over time. It was great when I started and everything, but sometimes things change and they don't align with our belief system and everything like that. Felt like it was time to move on to something different. And so I moved on to this other company as they call it a travel therapist. So I went around basically supporting therapists at each site. And then when a spot opened up in Wexford, and I don't think it was, and they said, would you be interested in taking it? So, yeah, and that was the best time of my career. It was where I had an opportunity, I felt like, to do what I actually went to school to do and everything. And so, but what is ironic here is that the place I left, as soon as I started, and like, not even like within a year, I started hearing rumors that the old place that I worked at was going to buy the place I was currently. So I was just like, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And sure enough, they bought the company and everything, which I was with that company for 5 years. But so my old company comes along and tells me, well, you're going to move out of here for a while, and you're going to do X, Y, Z and all that. Then you're going to move back here. And I said to myself, I know how they operate. I just didn't believe that. And so I left that place. And so one day I come across this ad that says substance use counseling. They got Allegheny County Jail. I saw that. And I'm like, I never thought about that. Like, I never thought about working in jail. And I don't know why, really. I just never really thought about it because like my stepkids, like both of them are like POs, one's like a quarter rep and everything. And I just never really thought about that because just, but I guess like they had been, over the years, they have been trying to implement that stuff in prison, like mental health stuff and substance use stuff and everything. And so I tried out for it and May 28th, I've been there for a year. And what I was telling some other folks is yeah, it's very different working in a place like that than it's obviously. I remember the first time I heard a door slam. Just, when you hear that door slam, it's just like you get this surge, it's like an ominous sound feeling. Yeah. But, and then so recently, I applied for a kind of position up in the courthouse, and which basically for, better opportunity as far as salaries concerned. But what is ironic about it is like, so if I work up there, it's like me and the kids will be working there too. So it's kind of strange, and so I tell people, what happens when if I don't, I'm not gonna be sad because I can say, I tried. At least I tried. And I didn't, talk myself out of it, which a lot of us have a history of doing that kind of stuff. We want to do something to try something, we come up with all these reasons as to why it's not going to work, or why we can't do it or accomplish what we want to accomplish. And I look at it as, if I don't get that position, that means there may be something bigger, something that is above me, that I'm meant to do, so. But here I am today, so I'm 52 years old. Like I said, I think it's record. But just, this place gave me 38 years of my life. 38 years, because I truly believe until the last few years, without a doubt, probably spent 25 years either in prison or without question, I would have died soon. I would have died probably 19, 20. But if I go in the right way, I live. One thing turned into another. And that's not saying everything in life is going to be positive. It's like when you get those curveballs, like things are going to happen. Sometimes even being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then situations sometimes change with loved ones, and everything. But the reality is we have to keep going. Stay strong. And also, I want to mention in my community, I didn't have any role models. The only role models in the community were calling that, and these gentlemen standing on the corner watching cars go by and sell drugs. Like that's what they did. And there wasn't anybody there saying, young man, you should think about going to college. Young man, you should think about getting a trade. None of that. You're just watching folks watching life go by. And the most interesting story is in these units apartments I lived in, there was one person I'd see leaving every morning. It was like, I was kind of confused at the same time. And I asked my mom, I said, why is she leaving every morning like that? And my mom was, oh, she's a provider, she's working. And I'm looking around, I'm like, how come nobody else is? It's like, but that's what I grew up in. It's like that kind of stuff. That was my culture. It just wasn't, valued. It's one person, and so to go through all that, not the other end of me here to be able to tell my story. It says a lot. And someday you guys can do the same thing. Believe in yourself. You got to put the work in though. Like I used to tell guys in group, if tomorrow, let's say I'm tired of doing counseling or whatever, and I say, hey, I want to be an electrician. And I go down to a place and I walk in and I say, hey, you guys hiring? Yeah, we're hiring. We need somebody background. Yeah, I've been doing counseling for 18 years. They look at me like, what are you doing here? Like, so whatever, in other words, what I got to do is I got to put the work in. I got to go to that trade school, the apprenticeship, whatever it involves, I got to do it. If I want to change, if I want something different, I got to put the work in. It's not just going to fall out the sky. Nobody's going to let you. I probably going to electrocute myself or someone else. Like not knowing what I was doing. So you know, when it comes to things like that, you have to put the work in. A lot of things in life you have to. But we always went the quickest, like swiftest way out, and you know, and it's, yeah. The old school text said, top measures and others, eating half-assed measures, you know, it's not good. Yeah, you gotta put it in. But if anything, I just wanted to have this opportunity to talk to you guys. And I'm very grateful for Mike. Any questions? Yes, sir.
What is the biggest thing they gotten out of the Delphi?
What you say out of Delphi is, it basically, it gave me more of a moral compass, meaning that, you know, knowing the difference between right and wrong, you know, and seeing people as people instead of people that I could steal from or harm or whatever, and things like that. Also too, like the discipline, the structure, the accountability, because that's one of the things, you know, you become adults and everything, it's like, stuff's scary, I'm not gonna lie to you, you know, you gotta pay bills, you gotta keep up with this, like, you know, and it just seems like things are getting more tougher as the years go on and everything, but, you know, you gotta be accountable, you gotta show up, even if you don't want to. And like, there's times I don't wanna do, you know, I used to work Sunday through Thursday, and there's times on Sunday, I didn't feel like doing this, we'd have this big group of like 37 guys, I don't feel like doing it. And I'd go in there, and after I did the group, I'd come out feeling charged, like I wanted to do something else, you know, and it was just like, it was cool. But there are multiple things come out of this program, and the fact that somebody actually cared about it, that was pretty cool. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it.
Anybody here?